It's August 27th, 2025, and this is episode 538. Today, we have Andy and Brian, and I am Jimmy, and this is the Daily AI Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining the live stream, and to all of you who are watching just a little later. If you haven't already, click the bell, like, subscribe, and join the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. Okay, let us do a quick lightning round of stories from everyone before we delve into this week's news adventure. Andy, what do you got?
Okay, a quick one. We've been talking about Meta's new superintelligence division and the incredible flow of money from Zuckerberg to the people at OpenAI and many other, poaches from Google. And news this week, 3 of the staff who just joined Meta have left. Avi Verma and Ethan Knight returned to OpenAI. So it's a revolving door. And then another person, Rishab Agarwal, left, but it's not clear where that person is going. And these are all people who got, reputedly 9-figure compensation packages to go to Meta. And apparently it's internally so either toxic or chaotic or, just insupportable that these people immediately left. And also, Chaya Nayak, who is the director of generative AI product management at Meta, there for almost 10 years, is leaving to join OpenAI. So that's the other direction, right? Not just the revolving door, go to Meta and then return, but also now someone from Meta is moving over to OpenAI. So the battle continues.
Brian, what's your lightning round?
I would say for me, it's probably Anthropic put out a article talking about education, but in this case, they were talking about educators, not students, and they had done a report on it, and they, surprisingly, not surprisingly, came back with a bunch of stuff. Educators are absolutely using Claude, building artifacts, but a lot of it is around rote, repeatable processes that they have to do all the time. This is not surprising to me at all. I think this is where a lot of people enter using AI is, hey, I have this process that I do that's not necessarily the most fun part of my job, and I would like to do less of that. And so it's a very human thing to say, like, how can I replace that? How can I make this easier on myself? And of course, educators, oftentimes, I mean, some obviously professors, tenure, stuff like that, there's perhaps money or a decent salary there. But we know that many educators are underpaid for what they are actually tasked to do. And so it doesn't surprise me that a lot of them are turning to Claude. Now, one of the things that it said was interesting was about it being used, AI being used for grading. So it says some educators are automating grading, others are deeply opposed. In our Claude.ai data, faculty used AI for grading and evaluation less frequently than other uses, but when they did, 48.9% of the time they used it in an automation heavy way. When they define that as where the AI directly performs the task. That's despite educator concerns about automating assessment tasks, as well as our surveyed faculty rating is it as well as our surveyed faculty rating, it has the area to where it has the area. I think it's mislabeled there where they felt AI was least effective. It was the area. there's a letter missing. I'm like, what is as was. It was the area where the faculty felt the AI was least effective. So I find this interesting. There's a whole report on that. You can go to anthropic.com and look the name of this article from them from yesterday. It's a 10-minute read. Anthropic Education Report, How Educators Use Claude. I mean, honestly, we could do a whole other show about this, but I know we talk about education quite a bit. What I like about it is that it's talking about it from the other side. And as we were talking about, there's a lot of you shouldn't do this, students, da 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 da. Da. But also, I'm going to use AI when it's quiet in my office and there's no students in there, and I'm going to use it to grade papers. I'm going to use so it's like, can't have it both ways. And so I think a lot of schools have a lot of figuring out to do. And also, I would imagine lots of educators, like in a lot of other professions, are doing this completely outside of and without the support or knowledge of the institutions they work for. This is happening at home on computers, where more than likely a lot of these institutions that I work for are not aware that they're using these tools. They're simply like everybody else trying to find efficiencies in what they do, and they're using AI for that. But it's tricky, right? Where, especially for the AI heavy, automation heavy tasks, right? So anyway, sort of a short, quick
let me
thing there to
comment on
say,
that
go
one.
read more about it.
Yeah, so this was a report that analyzed 74,000 conversations, but they necessarily, I think, had to identify them as educators, meaning these are actual teachers, professors, and they were using Claude. It's not clear to me. I'm not sure. Maybe you could provide some reference to this, that this was at home use rather than something that Anthropic provides as a service to universities. And there's how they knew these were educators that were using Claude.
Yeah, good call on that. I'm not sure actually. That's a good call. Like, how are they doing that? It says at the top here, in a recent Gallup survey, teachers reported AI tools saving them an average of 5.9 hours per week. Uh, and in version of usual discussion, students have begun expressing concerns about professors using AI in the classroom, which is what I was just saying. Previously reported our new analyst looks at professors. We analyzed 74,000 anonymized conversations for higher education professionals across the world on Claude.ai this past May and June. We also partnered with Northeastern University to hear directly from faculty. I'm not sure, Andy. I'd have to dig into the bottom of it to find out, but that's a good question.
Yeah, and the other point I wanted to add is that from those conversations, the largest block of use was in curriculum design. So they're using it not so much for assessment and grading, but where that happened, that raises these hackles because, can you give that up? Can you really trust AI to do a fair assessment of what student work product is? But what they're really using it for, in most cases, 60% of cases, was to design their syllabus and their course lessons, in the midst of the presentation of that syllabus. And that's a really good application of AI, I think.
100%, because I remember my friends, I had several friends who became teachers right out of college. And I remember one of the first things they had to do, and especially if they got bounced around, like in your lower levels, like elementary school, it's not uncommon for you to teach one subject and then be bounced to another one because either you move schools. Also, I saw my friends go from like third grade to fifth grade, totally different subjects. And I don't know how it is today, but at least when I got out of college and I watched my friends go through this, they would have to build at that time literal notebooks worth of every single day had to be planned out. Every single curriculum has to meet the standards of that state, right? So there's like, you'll see them, and the curriculum standards will be like .11 whatever, right? And it says these are essentially the keywords, the things that you have to cover as part of this to satisfy, in order to make sure you keep accredited, so on and so forth. So like they had to do all that stuff, and they would sort of manually sit down and be tasked with putting this together. It was a significant time investment that really wasn't like, at least the one I remember, the teachers weren't exactly given 2 days of pay to sit without doing anything else and build these. It was like, no, we've moved you. You're now doing this subject. And now it's like you just have to snap your fingers and have this new thing built. And a lot of times my friends did that on nights and on the weekends, like a lot of the teachers do. So I'm with you, Andy. Like, you now have not only the entire internet, you have the ability to look at what some of the best programs for that subject at that grade are doing. And now you have like things like Google Deep Research and everything else. There's no reason why you can't use AI to put together, quite frankly, a better syllabus that's more engaging for the students, or has a better chance of being engaging with the students than you could have ever done on your own. we should be leaning into this. And I don't think it should be the wild, wild west. I think, school systems should be leaning into this, deciding what best looks like, and then applying that and using that and giving that to the teachers. So I'm with you. I'm not surprising at all. It's a huge time suck. They probably feel insufficient and inadequate to probably put it together all the time, unless you get into the higher levels where you have experts in these fields. That's different if we're talking about college. But for all these folks that are in elementary and middle school and stuff, they're not experts in these subjects. They're just tasked with a job, and they're trying to do their best for the students. So yeah, I don't know. This is a good thing to me.
Okay. And to wrap up the lightning round, Grok has, or Elon Musk has released Grok 2.5, their older model, into open source. Admittedly, some AI engineers do describe the custom Grok license as a custom license with some anti-competitive terms. So not necessarily fully open source. All right, so now let's go to our stories of fiery passion. Andy, what do you have for us today?
I want to talk about Nvidia. So today is a big day in the world of AI, because Nvidia's quarterly earnings are going to be announced after the market closed today. And, the so-called dip in AI promise that was partly the result of the publication by MIT of an analysis of enterprise pilot success has cast some shade on whether or not all of this incredible investment in both the infrastructure on the hardware side and in model development and training and product development in AI is actually delivering any kind of return on investment when it's applied in the workplace. And so when this earnings release comes out today for Nvidia, it's going to have either a meh impact that's going to accelerate this dip that we're seeing in AI stocks, which is not that deep a dip, frankly. I'm invested in a number of AI stocks, and things have gone down a little bit, but not very much. But let's talk about Nvidia and what they have behind the scenes. I don't know what their earnings are going to be, but I think they're going to be very, very strong. It's just a question of whether or not that'll happen to accelerate the dip or recover from it. But now we talked just a couple of days ago about the move away from transformers and the power of transformers being limited when it comes to the development of artificial general intelligence, and that there's kind of a cap on what can be done with the transformer architecture alone. Well, NVIDIA just announced their Nematron Nano 2 family of hybrid Mamba-transformer models. These are reasoning models, and we talked about this expected future where it's going to be a combination of transformers for their vast knowledge store coupled with the selective state space models called Mamba. And so NVIDIA has just released some of those, and it's using a pre-training data set that has 6.6 trillion tokens in it. So the transformer model is being trained on 6.6 trillion tokens across web data, math, code, supervised fine tuning, and also multilingual Q&A. All of those things are in that training data set. But then you have this selective state space model architecture that advances the capabilities in terms of reasoning against that corpus of pre-training data. So that's a really important move in the right direction, as we understand it, based on what we know about the limitations of transformers alone. But then, on top of that, they also are now offering for sale at just a mere $3,500 the developer kit for the Jetson Thor robotics chip module. And this is a compact brain for robots. These first kits will ship in the month of September, and the chips allow customers to create robots that run generative AI models. Why is that important? Well, this kind of reaches the point where robots can actually handle complex real world situations dynamically without it being a programmed response. So they can think and reason using this module and those Nematron Nano 2 reasoning models together. A robot could, do some pretty impressive things on the fly, outside of and not connected to some controlling infrastructure that's connected to the cloud or being programmatically predetermined. So active autonomous robots, this is kind of the architecture that's emerging from Nvidia. And by the way, in terms of future economic promise, there are a number of companies out there who firmly believe that robotics will be this embodied AI, robotics will be even larger impact on economies and society than the advent of large language models has been already. So, um, so imagine now a robot that can, wander around chaotic city streets, but really make sense of that, independent of some, satellite view that's, guiding them. Or even like within the context of a warehouse, the bots won't need humans to tell them how to handle every single new situation they address, because they'll have the ability to understand and react to those things. And importantly, this Thor robotics chip module is small enough to actually fit onto one of these robots. Who's using them? Like Boston Dynamics has put it into their Atlas. This is one of their most advanced robots. You've seen it doing backflips. So it had this is a new advance for Atlas. I can't wait to see what they can allow that incredible physical thing to do. Agility Robotics is putting Thor into their warehouse robot called Digit. And I think there's one other, there was a reference in one of the newsletters that Figure AI, which is another robotics company, is also using the Thor robotics chip module in their latest designs.
Awesome. I mean, that's a lot of movement in Nvidia. I also heard a story of they put out some hardware, part of infrastructure hardware. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's supposed to improve the networking aspect, so the interconnectedness for data centers and things like that. I do have one slight weave story off of NVIDIA, and apparently there is a story going around that I saw on TechCrunch saying that NVIDIA is told their component manufacturers to stop building out components for their H20 chip. And this could be because of the back and forth that's been going on with China, H20, and the administration getting those back out, and then China finally saying, "Oh, maybe we don't want," encouraging their companies not to buy the chip and things like that. So we'll see what's happening. And Andy, I do look forward to seeing what that financials announcement will be. And then you said that was later today. That was going to be later today. Awesome. Okay. I do have a cluster of media stories, and that's kind of what I wanted to focus on today for myself. And that was essentially three kind of big moves happening for AI in media. Number one, YouTube seems to have been caught, or at least concerns have raised about YouTube applying AI to upscale content from users. Now this or from creators, and right now there's not a lot of information, but YouTube says this is just part of our normal machine learning, trying to provide the best version of things. But some content creators have put side by sides of what they created versus what YouTube's AI enhanced, and there's plenty of artifacts and what seems to be some AIification or manipulation of those videos. So, and this might also be a matter of YouTube kind of crossing the line in terms of a permissions versus forgiveness kind of thing. Content creators really didn't appreciate YouTube just doing this to their content, as opposed to just letting them know that they were going to do it, or at least have the option to opt out, opt in, and those kinds of things.
It seems like a miss on YouTube's part to believe that somehow that would be like everybody would want a high def upgrade, right? Or something.
Right.
I mean, just think about all the different types of content and all the different reasons why you might opt to have whatever the creator's control is, to have something that looks grainy, that looks less, that looks,
Exactly.
for creative reasons. And so it is odd to me that they sort of did this sort of, well, they were testing it. It's not like it went global or anything, but it's interesting that they did this. On the one side, you look at YouTube, you look at what YouTube TV is, you look at what Netflix is doing, and you can kind of see this future where, YouTube, well, I've already said for me, it's the predominant way that I consume TV for me. And I know I'm like probably in the minority with that, but that's the truth. I don't really look at YouTube on my phone at all. I don't really like it on my phone, but I love it on my TV. And I have a bunch of different subscribers that I follow up to. And that is definitely my default. If I'm going to spend 20 minutes and just kind of veg out, it's going to be on something that's very dad-like Vertasium, or it's going to be, whatever, things that interest me at this age, right? All sorts of different stuff. So on the one hand, I'm like, oh, you could see like gentle upscaling to perhaps make a more cohesive thing on the TV. But again, that goes back to like, it really should be 100% creative control. And if that creator has decided that they want a certain look to an interview, to even if it would assume that like, well, why wouldn't you want your sound, your lighting, your pixelization to be better? Wouldn't you want us to fix that for you? But the reality is it really shouldn't have anything to do with YouTube. So it's like, it does feel like a miss to me, why you would globally, like, I mean, not globally, but not make it an option for somebody to like first decide if they want to turn on something like this show. We would just simply probably default to that. It would make sense for us to do that. Hey, YouTube, you want to make our show look a little better? Thumbs up. But that should be a choice, right?
Right. Exactly. And that's some of the arguments that's been being discussed online. Now, an interesting point that you bring up is the miss from YouTube. On a more nefarious or darker look at this, some have interpreted this move as a way for YouTube to get the audience trained on looking at AI content, in the sense that if everything's been enhanced or upscaled by AI, then it will be harder to differentiate, or just on a subconscious level, just accept what AI content looks like. So it'd be harder to tell that one thing is AI and another thing is not AI. Now, do I think that's where this is going? I wouldn't necessarily put it past them, but I think at this point that's probably way too early to jump to that assumption. What I do see is YouTube often, like you said, likes to experiment and roll out different features just to see how they will be received. This could just be one of their A/B tests, and right now, people aren't receiving it well, right? I always lean on the side of more empowerment to the individual or the creator side in this context. So I would like a opt-in feature where it's like, oh, yeah, I want to try this out for a little bit. Okay, see how it works. Oh, okay, it makes my content better. I'll keep it on. Or, oh, it makes my content terrible. Let's turn that off. Have
Yeah.
a preview. They do previews now, right? When you add annotations or anything like that. So why wasn't that extra step made? And it's probably, like you said, this is just an experiment, but they didn't go the extra step for the customer or client buy-in,
Yeah.
which I think probably blown back on them a little bit. Now, of the three media stories, another interesting one is about TikTok and how they have moved a lot of moderation, or in the process of moving moderation, to AI. AI will be doing the moderation. So if your video gets flagged or taken down, or you have to go through an appeal, AI is going to run that process. And there's a lot of people who that just does not sit well with, mainly because if you're gonna silence me, right, from a content creator's point of view, if you're going to silence me, I want to know there was a person who made that decision, as opposed to you were just caught up in the sweep, that kind of thing. And that's one thing I constantly see on TikTok. Every month or so, there's somebody I might be watching consistently because of the content they've created, and suddenly I was like, oh no, sorry, this is my backup account because my current account got dinged or flagged or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think this realm of AI moderation or AI monitoring, like being monitored by the AI, especially in the content space or the media space, is going to be that's going to be a rocky road. That's not going to be an easy, smooth journey or transition from one point to another. So we'll see what big impact there is there.
I mean, the only thing I'll say on
And
that really
then,
quick, just before you go on, just so I can respond
mhm,
to that particular story. Um, Look, I think there isn't really a world where AI moderation isn't the I probably already is the predominant way. I don't see how it's a scalable solution for humans to be in it. I also don't love the idea of how many like humans that I've known or heard about who have the jobs that are like doing some of this moderation. I don't I don't like the mental health side of what that does. I've heard some really pretty terrible stories about people being paid very little to truly have to go through some pretty horrific, easy no's, that don't need to be up on social media. I also, look, I know people would think like, oh, don't be on Team Zuck or something. I also think it's like a job that there's nobody's ever going to be happy with you. And I'm not saying I agree with like Zuckerberg or whoever's running. I just think it's a job I am so glad that I don't have to be the one that figures out how to solve for, because we've watched Facebook through the years. We've watched others, TikTok's a little bit newer, try to deal with this. The reality is there is a world, a future where AI is much better than any human could be about it. The issue is, Jimmy, when and where through that process do humans get tagged and brought in? If you leave it to the person, the creator on the side, of course I'm going to hit 111110009999999 on a phone until I get it says okay, I'll put somebody on the phone with you, right? Like we all want to believe our problem is definitely human worthy, but everybody believes that it's their problem. They are freaking out. Their content just disappeared or got locked or banned for life or something. And rightfully so. People have built their entire livelihoods. I talk about this all the time. But years and years ago, I watched on Facebook, right as Facebook switched over to more of an ads based model. Prior to that, essentially people could be on Facebook and run their own, what we would consider to be an Etsy today. They could run it for free on Facebook and make a lot of money. And Facebook eventually said, we think we want to do this as more of an ad pay to play type situation. This would have been
right.
like 2010s somewhere, right? And I watched people basically lose their livelihoods of it. So I understand why it's personalized to everybody. It should be. At the same point, the volume alone would tell you this is not a human solution. This is a AI automation solution. Hopefully the models get better and better.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
when does the human get tracked in? Because
Where is that demarcation point? Yeah,
there has
I
to be a
totally
point.
agree.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
has to be a
because
point.
right now there is that. There is machine learning algorithms that flag the easy stuff.
Oh, sure.
And I think it's about the incremental release and having more levers. I think that's what really it is a lot of the content creators, they feel like they have no recourse. When was the last time you were able to talk to a human person from TikTok, Facebook, Google?
Yeah, none of them.
You can't. They
Yeah.
just, any phone number you might find just leads back to the FAQ. Why? Because the volume is that huge. And I get that. But when you don't enable your content creators or your customers to have some level of control. But I agree that yes, all the really bad things, absolutely. Cover that with AI. And yes, they have to determine where that line is. Maybe just having a stopgap saying, hey, if you think that this is a mistake, that your stuff was dinged, then hit that appeal button, your stuff comes back up, and then the human steps in.
Well,
Right?
what people are not going to like, Jimmy, is that they're going to hit the appeal button and there's going to be an agent's worth of appeal process, agents that are trained slightly differently and to look at it.
Yeah. No,
And they're going to, in 30
that's
seconds.
what I'm talking about, is an immediate response kind of thing.
The thing is, though, there still won't be humans in that. And people are going to get denied in like 10 seconds flat. And they're going to be mad that their appeal process only took 10 seconds. Because instead of looking in and saying, well, at least TikTok sent this through a mixture of experts.
Yeah, and I think that's
the
where I
feeling
have
is going to be
conflict.
like, you only took 10 seconds to.
I have, my conflict is if I hit appeal, that means I get a human person and we deal with it immediately.
Yeah.
Now, does that cost you more money? Yes, that costs you more money. I'm the one making the content, so it needs to be about me, not about you. But again, I might be on a tricky thing, man.
That's why I want to comment on it.
I'm sure TikTok's not going to agree with me about about this situation. And then just closing up on the media stories for right now, I kind of want to, and we're going to talk all about Google tomorrow. So just let everybody who's watching right now and watching later, tomorrow's episode is 100% Google, but just a little bit. And that's Nano Banana. That Nano Banana is sweeping. You know how popular everyone was talking about Notebook LM? I think the mainstream for Nano Banana is going to be talking about that for a long time, mainly because it's an editor, right? We talked about image generation, right? Taking a text prompt and making an image out of it. But this is an image editor via natural language.
Yeah, so the way Photoshop became a verb, right?
Yeah.
I Photoshopped the image. Well, now
Exactly.
it's going to be I banana the or nano banana the image or whatever.
And by the way,
exactly.
That's not the name. That was the battleground name.
Yeah. Now they just called it 2.5 flash. I'm like, come on, guys. You could have at least put photo in there or image.
They won't be able to get rid of Nano Banana. It's done.
Yeah, I think
flashed hard enough that is now in the general parlance. I don't think they'll ever escape it.
I like the name Nano Banana. It rolls off the tongue. It's a good. I mean, we were Strawberry and Q Star and all these things through the years. I'll take Nano Banana. I'll certainly take it over Bard. I think they should have started strong with Nano Banana. I think that should have been all their models. Never mind Bard or Gemini. Although, admittedly, Gemini is way better than Bard was. They pivoted hard there. But I would have started with a good Nano Banana. Credit to whoever came up with that in the thing. I do, as you're talking about it, Jimmy, I do want to bring up some examples of it as well. But I know you were kind of giving some overview.
No, go for it.
So I've been playing with this a little bit. And again, where do you get this? Gemini 2.5 Flash. There's nothing special you have to do for this to if you want to test out Nano Banana. But let me just show you a couple of examples. One, like two interesting ones that are like straight use cases. So why are we saying this is a big deal? Why is anybody saying this is a big deal? Well, because very up till very recently, if you made edits to an image or you asked for edits in an image in ChatGPT, even with the trace tool or the brush tool that said like really mask off everything else, which is essentially what that was, it would change other parts of the image that you did not want touched. And what Nano to Banana, or this new Gemini upgrade, is doing very well is leaving the rest of the image alone over and over and over again. So this upper one here was just an image. It's an AI image. Obviously, I created it for a recent thumbnail. I can't remember how far back. And so I simply said, can you change the car to an SUV, this car, and change the coffee cups that they have to larger water bottles? And you can see it had really no problem with that. But if you look at the rest of it, what's really important is that the facial expressions, the clothes, the street, the bridge back here, the buildings, everything else stayed the same. It only changed the car that I asked for and the bottles. And that traditionally has been very, very hard to get image generators to do. ChatGPT is hard, like I said, horrible about that. Here's another one. I can't remember where I used this image for, although that's not Boville, is it? No, I don't think that's her. I was like, dang, I didn't really use a real photo, did I? I think that's still AI generated. I guess it's good that I can't tell. Can you change your sweater or light rain jacket? Have her pointing out a weather map behind her. Show a big hurricane approaching the west coast of Florida, I think I said. She looks like a weather woman on a local evening news program. Just like I wanted to throw a bunch at it and see what happened. And this is what it came up with. I mean, the hurricane is not over the east or west. I guess it's technically to the west of Florida. I thought this one was okay, but I also asked for a lot. You know what I think is really cool here? If you look, it kept her same sweater. It put the same sweater in it. And if we look here, it kept the same garment underneath the jacket, which is like really impressive when you think about it. She's still doing the exact same pointing. If we were to look back and forth between the face, actually it's turned her a little bit, but we can tell that this is the same face, right? This is the same AI actress, if you will, AI generation. Again, very, very cool. So then I went and figured like, let's do a little something. Me and Carl met up for the first time. He's still to this day the only Daily AI Show person that I for sure know is not an AI avatar, because I have met him in person. And we were in a Panera, right? So that's not super fun. So I thought like, let's change this up. So this is our photo. So I said, hey, put us outside, basically. Put us on a partly cloudy day. I thought it did it okay. This definitely looks like it could be a backdrop. If you look up here, we could still see the lights. I'd asked it not to do that. But you can see the lights of the Panera overhead lighting, which definitely does not look like we're standing outside on a partially cloudy day, right? So little things like that are great. I wouldn't consider this to be a great result, but I kept playing with it a little bit, make the background feel more realistic. I don't think it changed a thing. Then I said, go ahead and put me in the same jersey as Carl. And it actually did a really good job. Look how much of it is actually obscured. You can't really see, and it's turned at a really angle. It really had no issue putting that entire jersey. I think this looks really good. I was impressed by this. And what I started noticing really quickly is ask for one thing at a time. So then I said, put me in some shorts and some tall socks to make me look like I was maybe one of the players. And then I started going into more of the Springfield side of it. And you can see like, whereas it had no issue taking care of like Carl on the right-hand side, although I would say it looks nothing like Carl at that point. It did have no problem putting me in Springfield, but then it clearly did make me a Springfield character, right? So then I had to ask again, and I kind of stopped here, and it didn't truly go much farther than that. But the point to this is like, starting from where I was to this, I wouldn't say this is a great result, but it's more the fact that this new Nano Banana model is doing a really good job of just changing one thing, which is why people are like, oh, it's the Photoshop killer. Well, I think that all comes down to prompting, natural language. There's something to be said for a good scalpel tool in Adobe that says pull this and replace it with that. And, Adobe has great masking tools. But is this a great indicator of where things are going? That now I can just look at this picture of me and Carl and say, I'd prefer if that was outside on a soccer field or whatever, instead of inside this Panera where we just happen to have somebody take our photo. Then I think that's actually kind of cool. I can change the shirt and stuff like that. So
I think for me, I really like the potential in character ideation. I can now take a single photo or generate a single image as part of my ideation plan and just put that character in any angle,
Yeah.
aspect, place, wearing whatever I need to, what kind of lighting I want to position it. If I've created a larger landscape where they can be put into that position, which allows you to build out your lighting plan and your scene, right? So this has lots of aspects of working in a storyboard, things like that. And now with things like flow and runway, anchoring images or keyframes are essentially uh, are great. The keyframes form a mile marker or point in which to start and end image sequences or scene sequences. So if I can start with my character, I can generate my character, I can put them where I want in a scene, generate the scene, then tell essentially use one version to start a scene and another version to end the scene, and then the models will fill in whatever I describe as the motion, the look, and all of those kinds of things. And then I can just do that scene by scene and string them together to actually create a full, or I should say, shot by shot, into a full scene. And then this is how we can get into really multi-minute long sequences, and then that can be strung together in larger scenes or larger shorts, larger film pieces as well. So it's like key pieces and the level of control and the way you're able to manipulate or edit that image, which then becomes the source material for your video. While it kind of fills a lot of different roles and a lot of different steps, and I think that's where it will really shine. So we'll see how. Yeah, I saw that video. I did see that video because they combine a lot of the image manipulation through a couple of different tools there,
Boy,
and
that woman has some really big hands there.
right, because they only really changed the face of the head on that one. But yeah, and there's a lot of examples like this because things like Act Two from Runway and whatnot, uh, they do really well with some movement, but not full scene movement or moving in the space. So having a talking head, that's essentially what this is. A little expanded upon that. You can clearly see where the advancements are now. I do want to start building out full films myself. So we'll see, we'll see how well it does combining them. But yeah, it's
One
exciting.
last
I,
point on
I think
Nano.
that's where my point is.
Uh,
What's up?
One of the features that I read about, I haven't looked at it. I don't really do much with images. I'm very caught in my head in language. don't do don't do visuals. But apparently, you can give it two different images and then prompt some sort of merging of
Yeah.
different elements
You can
from
do up to
two
3.
different images that you've uploaded, and that's an interesting extension of the capabilities of just what you were referring to, Brian, which is the ability to lock down certain parts of the image and maintain consistency from one edit to the next for those elements that you haven't addressed.
And there's some really amazing TikTok creators. I wish I knew his name right off the top of my head. That does all of the runway. He just does tests and tests and tests of runway. Just in that alone, he's been able to show how you can have you can change out characters and backgrounds and stuff. It really, I mean, we're really starting to see where people who just never thought they would be in animation because they have it. They're more of like the story mode. Like they had great ideas. Think about people being able to put together their ideas now and how polished it could look if they had an idea and they wanted to pitch. I always go back to like the pitches where I think the big difference is here. Now you could be Joe Blow with the basics of internet connection and a decent computer, and you could put together, to your point, Jimmy, to your point, Andy, I could act it out myself. I can change my voice. I can make myself a dragon. I can do whatever I want, and I can act out what I need to without having an understanding at all about lighting or technique or animation. If I wanted to be an animation, I wanted to look drawn or whatever. And I could put together something, to your point, Jimmy, probably in a few hours. That's like a 5-minute sizzle reel of like what I'm pitching. And then I'm able to take that, directly to, pitch it or however it goes through the process in order to say, not only do I have this idea, but this is what I'm talking about. And of course, an image goes, is worth 1,000 words, and a video is worth 1,000 images, right? So it's like you can see where this is going to unlock the ability for people who maybe have previously not had any ability, and certainly not the money, to put together or get a few friends that they might be able to do to act out a scene so they can try to pitch it. This is how the futures of Goodwill Huntings and things like that are going to be pitched, because you're going to be able to do it for pennies on a computer with nobody else, play all the roles. Yeah, her hands were too big, right? But he was able to demonstrate that that was a female and she was part of it. And we know he could have used 11 Labs to change her voice to be a female voice. And Runway V2 could, and what's it called? The other part of Runway does all of that stuff. So look, I think there's a lot of potential here. And if I could, I know we came off of Gemini really quick. Could I show one really cool thing? And then I know we probably need to move on.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Bring that
super,
up.
super
But
cool.
yeah.
Okay, super cool. All right. This is my grandfather and my grandmother. This is an image that floats around in a lot of houses on my dad's side. And so this is I love this photo of them. Obviously, I never knew them at this age. I'm not quite sure what year this is, but these are my grandparents, right? I would call him Pop-Pop, and this is Grandma. So one of the things that's very cool about Nano Banana is that you can colorize images. The other thing is with VO2 directly in Gemini, you can now use motion and add motion to it. So I just want to show you something. Like, you can be the judge on what you think about this one way or the other. I have shown this to my dad, and my dad thought it was very cool. This is his parents. So let me just show you this really quick. So from that black and white, I was able to get it to be both colorized and also to add some motion to it. Look, there's a lot of open conversations about this that should be happening about, should he be waving in it? Is that something my grandfather would have done? What if I had said, and I prompted it, he leans over and gives her a kiss. And then my father said, that's not really the way they acted, though. Am I now starting to put memories, as Beth has talked about and stuff, is like, if I put that out there, is that being unfaithful to what was just a screenshot? I don't know what happened in the second or the second before or after the actual black and white photo happened, right? So where is it something that is helpful? Now, my dad had a big smile on his face, and my dad said, this is last night, my dad said, there's another one from their wedding that I won't show. And he said, oh my God, I look like my dad. And it was like it was a real moment with my dad, right? He was like, I didn't realize, it was from his wedding, his father's wedding. He's like, I didn't realize how much we favored each other, because in the black and white photo, it's very hard to get those like shades and tones and stuff. But when we translate it into color and there was a little bit of motion and they're walking towards the camera, my dad's like, hold on, let me look closer. Let me look closer. That's amazing. I can't believe how much I look like him. I'm like, Dad, you look a lot like him. We call him Pop. His dad's Pop-Pop, right? Pop, you look a lot like Pop-Pop, So I just wanted to share that as sort of like a personal thing. But I also want to point out here, with great power comes great responsibility, and that old saying. And so there's a bit of that. I was very, very hesitant to show this to my father. In fact, I showed it to my brother first, and I thought, because the last thing I would ever want to be is looked at being disrespectful towards family. So I think there's a lot to be considered with this, but the fact of the matter is it exists. You can colorize and put motion to black and white photos, and there's a lot of big smiles from folks. But you might also have people who say, I don't like that. The image is the image. Leave it alone. And
it's true. It's true.
Like for another day,
I think there's I agree. There's a larger conversation about cultural context and how much do we want to pull from history, and is there a manipulation of that history? Once you do that, there's a lot to discuss there. And I think a lot of it does come with purpose and intent. But technologically speaking, that was a thing that you did with your family, and it seemed like your father enjoyed seeing that. So I think that was a win for
a really important conversation. And I'm working on a show idea
Oh,
and putting together the thing on digital cloning and all the different facets of digital
Hmm.
cloning, both on the moral and ethical sides of representations that might not have ever really occurred, and how do you maintain faithfulness and authenticity with respect to live humans if you're cloning live humans, either from on one side the nefarious applications of in deep faking somebody, or in the legacy sort of preservation sense that you demonstrated here today, Brian. That's going to be a whole show, and I'm putting together the dossier for that.
Love it.
and that,
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds great. And I think super timely with that HeyGen just released their Avatar
That was,
4.
that was
And
another story. Yeah.
right. And I got to see, because we got the email that said, hey, we're releasing this, take a look at it. And from their examples, digital twin is apt. That it is quite good at replicating, seeing side by side. So looking forward to that show, Andy. And I think that's a good place to wrap it for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Um, so all of you folks in chat, thank you so much for joining us so early in the morning every day. Thank you to all of our viewers and subscribers. Please, if you want to continue this discussion, there's just all of the news in particular for me always gets the gears going, and I want to talk more about it. So continue the discussion on our Slack community. Just head over to dailyaishowcommunity.com to sign up for that. Tomorrow is Google Day, so Google's AI dominance, and then Friday is our grab bag where we talk about all the things that interest us and review of what's happened in the AI space. Until tomorrow, aloha.